All right, welcome everyone here for another set review, but this time not joined with the usual suspect of Dean. Dean is not here. I'm joined with my two team members from California and Houston, which I topped 8 in both regionals with on our team. We have Skaz here. You want to say hi?
Hey, what's up, guys?
And then we have Shephard.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
All right, so we kind of talked it over. We're like, you know what? Let's do a set review together. It'd be a lot of fun. After we totally showed off that we're very good card game players and didn't win either of them, but only top 8 in both.
Hey, consistently mediocre.
Hell yeah!
Let's go.
So, first card here, I guess. Shephard, you're forest guy. You want to start us off?
Yeah. So starting off, we have Cassiopeia, 5 mana for a 4/5. When she comes into play, she pretty much nukes the board. This card's so good. We've done a little bit of set 4 testing ahead of time, and there's a reason this isn't like every Japan list. It's a body. It's super tempo positive. It's annoying. 5 toughness is a little difficult for a couple of crafts to deal with. Like I'm just really excited to have access to play this card next set.
Yeah, this card's honestly been like really annoying to play against. I personally would rate this thing pretty highly. I expect to see a lot of it in the next set. I actually don't know how long it gets played in the JP meta, but it's definitely like this is one of those cards definitely to look out for this set. Like you probably need to pick them up no matter what forest list you're playing.
Yeah, this is like a day one. Like you crack this, the guy next to you cracks it from a box. Like just toss him the $10 and pick it up if you
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's solid card overall. I mean, what's more to say? You guys kind of covered it all. But obviously, you're missing out on the next legendary, though. That's truly the most broken.
I mean, it says win the game on it. So.
Oh yeah. All right. So really quick, here is the art. This obviously celestial mythology. Yes, that's the name of the set. Has a collab with Code Geass. So we have CC here for the alt art. But yeah, on to the next big bad. We have Deepwood Anomaly here. It's 7-drop 8/8. Already so big. Has Evo for 1. When this card attacks, deal damage to an enemy leader, you win the game. That's pretty good. It's a win condition. On Evo itself, it becomes a 10/10. Same effect, deal damage to the enemy leader, you win the game. But on Evo, you choose an enemy follower and put it to the bottom of their deck.
So it's worth mentioning, like the very obvious point here is that this thing has to stay on the field for a turn. Not saying it's unlikely that could happen. I mean, he has an 8/8 body pre-Evo, and he can like Evo to get rid of a ward and swing in. But I mean, he still has to survive on the board for a whole turn, which will noticeably pull down its overall rating.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of glaring flaws with this strategy. Like a standing 8/8 at first seems scary, and like we could even go ahead and say a good chunk of the time, like your opponent's just not going to be able to remove a standing 8/8, right? They're going to have to find a bounce spell or like these expensive kill spells, whatever cards people don't play that much of. The problem is that it's turn 7 and you're just doing nothing. And in set 3, that's already a really hard ask. And the other thing that makes this like kind of a difficult ask is that there's another Forest Craft card we're going to get to after this that basically also says win the game that costs 2 mana less and is way better.
Yeah, and on top of that too, like at the end of the day, during this meta, Force is going to be a relatively repped set or craft overall, and they're one of the crafts that have a million bounces in bottom decks. So, like, if you hit the mirror a lot, this card is just infinitely worse. Otherwise, you just get into this Deepwood Anomaly mirror match of bottom decking each other's Deepwood Anomaly until someone runs out of
Okay, never mind. I take it back. That sounds really fun.
The other thing too I want to mention is that as this game's like card pool gets bigger and there are more cards that say combo and do good things, the like less room you're going to have to put these guys in your deck, which means it's going to become even more competitive than it already was. That's why cards like Rose, Queen, etc. just you'll never see those played anymore. And this is the same thing where any jump in power you get is like, even if this card was really good, guaranteed to stay on the board, is hurt so much by the fact that if you ever draw this in your opener as Forest, you cry a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but with that being said, I'm sure we're all going to lose to this card at
100%.
locals and at regionals for sure.
100%.
Oh, this is what dream crushes us at regionals for sure. Like this is you're in the winning in, the guy drops it, and you're staring at your 7-card hand that doesn't kill it.
No answers, little scoop.
Like I will say, it seems like we're being pretty harsh on it. I do think it does have some playability. I personally don't see the shell that necessarily runs this and is like consistently happy with it. But I think
Yeah.
I think it does have legs. Like it's actually got no legs now that I look at it. But I do think this card is like potentially real. It's just hard to see like where is this going to shine, or are you just like kind of gambling every time you play it that your opponent just doesn't have the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think this is like not a card that will win 0 games. I think this is a card that will, like we were saying, win some locals. But when I'm looking at the card review, I'm thinking, okay, like if let's say we're in another team tournament together, if I turn to you and you have this card in your deck, am I happy or am I sad? And I think if I showed up and I said, hey guys, for this team event, I want to play Deepwood Anomaly, I might not be on the team anymore.
All right, next up, King Elephant.
Yep.
6 mana, 1/1. Man, this card can't be that good with that stat line. It's pretty terrible. It's a 6 mana, 1/1. It's got Storm and it evolves for 4. On Fanfare, choose any number of cards on your field and return them to your hand. This gets +X, where X is the number of cards in your hand, like after returning everything. When you evolve it, this card can attack while ignoring ward. And on evolve, it also gets +X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So you get 2 triggers of the +X on both playing it and evolving it. And it has Storm and it ignores ward, so nothing can really block it from doing what it wants to do. Card's very powerful. Card can be like a huge blowout finisher if you have like, 6, 7 cards in your hand and you pull stuff back in your hand too. Like this thing can swing for an insane amount of damage.
Yeah, I want to say this card is the one that says win the game on it for real.
100%.
And it might seem like it's pretty good when you're reading this as like, oh, it's dealing, it's a 6/6 or 7/7, right? But the truth is that if you ever get into a late game situation, a stall, etc., this can realistically, and this has come up several times in testing, threaten to 14 your opponent, 16 your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of little tricks you can do with it. Like if you have a Harvest Festival in
Yeah.
play and it returns the Harvest Festival draws you a card, so it counts it. And if you have enough, it's turn 9, you have an Evo point, or it's just turn 10, the game stalled out a little bit, that's actually going to count for another 2. So you can find a lot of sneaky lethals with this card.
It is worth mentioning, though, that this thing does not have aura. It's very vulnerable to quick spot removal, like Acolyte's Light, Execution, anything like that.
Yeah, and I would actually say, just having tested a lot of Forest, this card's powerful enough that I think it warps the way you're going to want to play Forest in set 4. I've played a lot of these like more combo heavy Elf Song kind of builds, and the problem is that they have a hard time finishing the game, especially if your opponent at all can stabilize. And if you're spending all your cards early on cards like Elf Song, which we'll get to later, you're not going to have the resources to necessarily elephant your opponent out of the game. And so I think this is also what you see in JP meta. There's going to be kind of a similar strategy to now, where instead of silver bolting people, you play 1 card a turn, silver bolt you. It's going to be similar. It's just going to be King Elephant instead of silver bolt.
Yeah, I mean, with that being said too, like even playing out to the board and like tempoing just like bodies onto the board, it also always threatens your opponent. Like at any point they spend a turn and they're unable to answer your board, it just suddenly becomes you swinging with everything and you slam Elephant to the board, and now you have this big guy with Storm also swinging in. Is like, it's still threatening in that sense too.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing to know, if in like the nature of like the tempo based forest strategies too, is that your opponent from turn 6 onwards, oftentimes from their 5th turn onwards, has to play around this card for the rest of the game. So you could take advantage of that.
Also, it's kind of important that this card does not like effects like this can oftentimes just like get a huge bonus and then that bonus goes away. It keeps all of its +X/+X's. Like it doesn't go away end of turn or anything. So even if you get in with say like an 8/8 or a 9/9, and like great, you got that damage, and you still have an 8/8 or a 9/9 in play that has to be answered in future turns too. So like this card just gets really annoying. It's really good.
Yep, it's definitely the huge boss monster and the big draw to forest, in my opinion, for this set.
For sure.
All right, we have this next card here. Shephard.
Yeah, this is Fashionista Nelcha. 2 mana for a 2/3. Also, I play a lot of card games and I will confuse the terms in all of them. So if you hear me say clan, craft, color, everything, this is a 2 play point 2/3, and it has activate combo 3. So you can only activate it if you've played 3 cards this turn, and it can either give an allied follower +2/+2 or an enemy follower -2/-2. I think this card is interesting. At first, I thought this card was busted, and then I thought it was like mid, and now I'm somewhere in like the range of, yeah, it's a pretty good card. Like when you get it off, when your deck does what you want it to do, it feels really powerful, especially when you have turns where this is one of your 3 cards, then you can like give something +2/+2, which is really big if you're able to, for example, give an Ancient Elf +2/+2, and now you have a standing 7/7, which is just a huge question of if your opponent's going to be able to answer that or not, and you've only spent, these little dinky cards to build your 7/7. That said, it is a little clunky to hit combo 3 reliably, and what's interesting in the Japanese meta was they were actually running a lot of Flower Princess instead of this card. Um, because of the, -2/-2 seems good, but there's a lot of breakpoints where you really wish you had that third point of damage.
Yeah, that's like the big thing when I always look at this card when it comes to like the removal part of it, essentially the -2/-2 that is. It just like Flower Princess just seems slightly better and like less to worry about in that sense. You don't have to really always have to play towards the combo, but I guess it's still a 2-drop 2/3, so it's like relatively same in that sense. But just the extra damage there on the end there just feels like it hits just so much more.
Yeah, I would say this is, if you want, this is a card that if this is in your deck, the primary mode should be you want to give +2/+2. If you want access to something that's going to primarily be like removal or tempo based removal, you're going to want Flower Princess instead, I think. This card's also just plays better on curve than Flower Princess, which means I like it a little bit more. If you just Flower Princess on 2, you're pretty much never getting that Fable counter. But if you Fashionista on 2 and then triple spell on 3 or 4, you can still activate her.
Nice. All right. Next card here. Wait, who is this? I've already lost track of who's going.
I think it's you.
Okay,
It's you,
Spring Green Protection. It's a 1-drop amulet. When this card leaves the field, put a Fairy Wisp in the EX area, and then has activate 1 play point. Act this card and put it into the graveyard. Choose one of your elf followers, forest followers, and it gets +1/+0. Combo 3, then it gets +0/+1. So I assume you guys have a little bit more experience with this card. I don't know how to rate this card at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So King Elephant is the reason why people are going to play Forest in this set. This card is the reason why I'm going to play Forest in this set. This card is amazing. I think this is like probably tied with King Elephant or a little bit below it as like the signature card from this set for Forest moving forward. Basically, every bounce spell now comes with a 1/1 attached. It lets you Ancient Elf on turn 2. And the amount of games you can win, like just in testing, the amount of games that we've done where I go Ancient Elf on turn 2 and then Gaz or Pressure, whoever I'm playing against, just is like, all right, let's just go to the next one. Because like they can't answer it and it's like the game's over.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that this is like the 0 cost token. This is not the 1/1 for 1. Like this is going to be enabling your combos so much earlier because you could play something for 0.
Exactly. You play something for 0, and then also later on, you can always just threaten to get in that extra point of damage that you need. You can crack it to get a Wisp on a later turn to effectively go up a combo point out of nowhere or go up 2 combo points out of nowhere. Yeah, I think this card's phenomenal.
It's weird because this card has a lot more text on it, but it really is mostly just the bouncing effect.
Yeah, it literally just reads to me like you play this card, you get 2 combo that turn or whatever whenever you bounce it, right? Or even
I would say
bounce.
that is the text on it, but that text is so good that when the second text is relevant, it feels unfair.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Agree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wait, that card does more? Like you already got the Wisp. What do you mean you get to get an extra damage, or you get to like, once again, this card turning Ancient Elf into a 6/6 takes it out of the range of pretty much every damage-based removal spell in the game.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Okay, let's talk about Sakuna, Brave and Small. This is a 1-cost 1/1 with Evo for 1. The Evo, there's like a lot of stuff going on with the Evo. The Evo has Storm. It's a 2/2. And on evolve, if you have combo 3, it gets +1/+1. If you have combo 5, it gets +3/+3 instead. So this thing gets up to a 5/5 with Storm as long as you have combo 5. This thing is like super modular in how you want to play it. It's like pretty easy for this to either just be like, if you're going second, you can play this on turn 1 as a 2/2 Storm Goblin, essentially using one of your Evo points, which is something that no deck has been able to do until now. And this is actually really frustrating to deal with. A 2-mana or a 1-mana 2/2 like hitting you on turn 1 is very frustrating. Even just playing it like kind of early-ish as like a 3/3 with the combo 3, or eventually getting to be that 5/5. This card's really good. This card's insanely good in my opinion. It's a silver. It doesn't feel like one. Card's nuts. It's super good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm that high on it, but I do think this card's very good. I think most of the forest decks you're going to see are probably going to have this card. I think there are some that aren't going to have it, and it's justified. And part of that is mostly just Evo space is like really tight for forest in this set. But yeah, like you said it all. This card's very modular. You get to kind of really have fun, like picking apart the puzzle of how you want to use it every game. I do think that there is a couple of costs involved with putting this card into your deck, but they're so low that you'll see it most of the time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I basically agree with both of you. And I'm always a big fan of cards that have like modular text where I get to decide how I want to use the card, or I have different ways to use the card. So that always excites me, because I think any card that has modular text always feels way stronger than it should a lot of the
Definitely.
times.
I mean,
Yeah.
flexibility is just like an advantage. Even
Yeah.
if the outputs are not as powerful, which they are powerful in this case, just the flexibility alone adds power to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next card.
The next card is Dollar Blade Demon. This is a 4-mana 4/4, and it's got fanfare and last words. Deal 1 damage to all enemy leaders and all enemy followers. You know, we had a really good run of discussing good forest cards here, but it's come to an end. As this is just unplayable trash.
Yeah, this does not impress me at all. The stats kind of suck. The fanfare and last words don't feel very powerful for just spending an entire turn to play this card like on curve even.
It's not great. It is kind of nice that it does hit all enemy followers and the enemy leader. Like that is kind of a powerful effect, especially since it is going to do it twice. But unfortunately, it's a 4-mana 4/4, which is not like, this is not really what I want to be doing for 4 mana. But it's not. I don't know. I think it's better than trash, but I think it's not as good as it needs to be very playable.
Listen, this card's going to be sick in your Open 8 tournaments, all right? For
Yeah.
release.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
This is a limited bomb for sure.
Yeah.
I think that something also to note about this card is that a lot of people are going to compare this to Cassiopeia for 1 mana more, which basically is going to do a ton more damage to the opponent's board. This costs 1 less, which is an advantage, but when you're building your forest deck, you're going to see that if you count all the 3 drops that Evo for 1 / race for 1, plus the 4 drops you might want to play, this is like just so far down the list that I just can't imagine putting this into a deck, because there's a million 4 drops / 3+1 Evos that I want to play instead.
Yeah, the 1 damage point would have to be way more relevant in the format for it to be really worth it. Like if you had some deck that was putting out 4 X1s, then maybe this is like actually really good. It doesn't really seem to be the case in Shadowverse Evolved, so it's just not worth playing. I think we just move on.
Yep. Next card here is Elf Song, 2-drop spell. It's put a fairy on the field, and then combo 3, give all of your forest followers +1/+1. Apparently, I copied the wrong sheet over. I thought this was the one of the English translations. This card seems very. I don't really care about it. Have you guys played with this card?
This card, I was gonna say, this card has actually been extremely annoying.
Really?
I actually really despise this card. It's surprisingly good. I think it was Prussia that was playing, or it was the one who was like trying to convince us of it at the first place. And this card is surprisingly good.
Yeah, Prussia's really high on this card. You know, I basically have 2 kind of forest decks in my mind that I've been workshopping, and it comes down to if the main divider between the decks is if they are playing this card or not. I'm hesitant. I know this is like the set review, we're supposed to give our opinions, but I just like am so scared to go strongly either way on this card because no matter what happens, I think I'll be wrong. The thing is when you play out your whole hand and you Elf Song, it's basically saying I'm going to win the game or I'm going to lose the game right here. And the only problem with it is that a lot of the turns that you do that, you're actually not going that big because you're giving +1/+1 to things like wisps and your 2/2s. Like maybe you get one of your 4/4s into a 5/5, like a Einstein Flash or something. But because your board has less than 4 toughness, even after the pump from this, usually to get the combo, you're just gonna die to conflagrates, to Gians, like half of the things that are gonna like whiteboards. Your opponent's gonna play Cassiopeia and get at least 2 or 3 of your guys off the board. And there's just so many ways to punish it that like I think I have too much anxiety to show up to a serious tournament with this card.
Yeah, I kind of read this card as like one of those cards where it's just like you win more type of card. Because like if you're yeah, because like you're saying, like my only question prior to this was like, does the +1/+1 put you out of range of like most removal, so your board is like infinitely more stickier in that sense?
Yeah,
and
that's basically the point.
Yeah, it sounds like generally most of the time it doesn't. So I'm always hesitant for cards like this that don't necessarily, help that much. And then also it's not necessarily a quick, and usually I like combat tricks. There's not that many combat tricks in this game. There's like 2 maybe. So that's always like a downside for me at least. But yeah.
I mean, something important about this card for me is that it usually can take a bunch of smaller resources and turn them into something scary, which is when I think it's pretty good, because when you're playing incidental wisps that you got off of, your Spring Green Protection or your Elven Princess Mage, if you're brave enough to try that out like I am right now, it's not that good. But you turn these incidental resources into something that's an actual semi-threat. And what I like about it, the problem is, yeah, you spend a bunch of incidental resources and then your opponent wipes the board, so you didn't lose that much. But what you did lose is like 3 cards minimum from your hand, typically. And then now your King Elephant, because that's like, let's say that's turn 5, which is a pretty good turn 5. Now your turn 6 King Elephant looks pretty weak, right? Now you have like a 4/4 King Elephant.
And even turns that are just like if we're just like kind of making up a hand here, if you're playing something like play one of your tokens, say you're like a fairy token, play a fairy token, play a Harvest Festival, play Tia, and then drop this afterwards. This is all for like what, 5 mana? No, 6 mana, something like that.
I think you have the board space for that.
If one of them's a wisp, I don't know. I don't play forest. It's something like that. Hey, whatever. The point is that actually no, it should fit. It should be 5 cards. The point is that you're basically not committing like a whole card to each step of this. Like you're putting a token here, a token there. You can build a really wide board for basically 2.5 cards, and that has to be answered. And it's both wide and tall because you have the Tia getting buffed from the combo. You also have the Tia getting buffed from this card as well.
Yeah,
or not the Tia. Sorry, the Eve that it drops.
Those are some of the best turns in this game. Is when you can get off the Tia plus Elf Song. What I really frustrates me about it is you got to have like a Spring Green Protection in there or something, because when the tall part of it is Eve at 5/5, and let's say like you have to get the Evo off to make her a 6/6, because otherwise Eve being at 5 means that you're just functionally dead to like half of the same board wipes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know. This card is going to win games, and if you're underrating it, you might get blown out by it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this card is like either like pretty good and you'll see it a lot, or it's just at that level where it's good but it's not consistent, so you'll just see it here and there.
All right, fair. Next card here.
Starry Elf.
Why is this a forest card?
I didn't know this card existed. 3 mana, 3/3. Fanfare. Oh, it's this one. Fanfare. Search for an amulet in your deck and put it into your hand. I didn't realize you were in the Haven section, but that's kind of odd. This card seems pretty unplayable as far as I can tell in the current set of forest cards. I don't know what you'd be searching up with this. Seems bad. Thoughts?
I don't know why. Why did they put this in forest? Like, I have no idea. I'm gonna go get my Spring Green Protection now.
Is this just like the poor man's Tweedledee and Tweedledum, basically?
God.
This feels like a card that may be relevant in 6 sets, and
Yeah,
we
this is just
currently
waiting
not.
for the good Forest Amulet to get printed. Like when they print
Yeah.
the 5-mana win the game Forest Amulet, then like you put this card in every Forest deck.
All right, I think that kind of wraps that up. Next card here.
Cool. Is this me again already?
I think it is, yeah.
Fida the Gentle Elf. 2 play points for a 2/1, and it just all it does is evolve, and then it evolves into a 3/2 that when you evolve it, you heal 1 and draw a card. I want to play the version of this game where like all the good cards just don't exist, and we're just playing these little janky like open 8 kind of cards like this, but we don't play that version of this game. And I think cards that just get this like really, really little value, especially in Forest in the early, like I just don't think it does enough.
Yeah, it seems pretty mid overall. There's just so much better things you could be doing. It just seems like, and just better cards to be putting in the deck. I mean, we're at the bronze section, so what do we expect here, right?
Hey, some bronzes can go hard, okay?
It's true. It's true. You occasionally find that secret gem, but most bronzes for them seems like, they fall off quickly or they're only around for just a little bit.
Yeah. We have a couple of playable bronzes coming up for the forest heads out there.
All right, next card here. Dryad, 2-drop, 2/3. Has strike. Choose an enemy follower. Give it -1/-0.
Looking like a starter deck card.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really struggling for 2-drops, then maybe this is playable because you don't have any other cards. You opened up one box.
So, like, let's say you show up to the Shadowverse event and your other 78 forest cards all catch on fire spontaneously. Yeah, this is just unplayable.
I mean, the nicest thing I can say about it is it's a 2-mana 2/3, so at least it's like kind of decent stats on curve.
Yeah, it's standard 2-drop stats. I like it.
Yep. Hey, yeah, true. I mean, that being said, this thing is like purely defensive, pretty much. You only really want to be using this to swing at followers, not leaders, because of its strike effect.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm giving this so much time. Don't play this card.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Next card.
Beetle Warrior. It's a 3-mana 3/4 fanfare combo 3, gain +1/+1 and storm. This card is relatively playable, actually, in my opinion, anyways. It's not unreasonable to have this thing drop as a 3-mana 4/5 storm, which is not terrible. It's like almost a Dark General for similar amounts of work, but less mana. It's so much cheaper. That being said, you do have to spend some amount to get the combo online, so you're not really dropping this as a 3-mana 3/4 in most cases, or 3 PP 3/4 in most cases. But I mean, you technically could with Fairy Wisps, but it still was requiring more setup.
Yeah, this card's good. Like I don't think it's great.
No.
It's just playable.
Playable for sure.
Like you'll play it, you won't play it. Like I don't know what the best forest list is going to look like just yet because it's going to be really meta dependent. I think forest has a lot of options going into this set, and this is just one of them. I think in some decks where you're doing potentially like elf song style things, this is just another thing you can do to get your combo 3 payoff from your wisp, etc. And if you ever get to live the dream of like wisp Beetle Warrior elf song, you just like feel like $1 million. Like even if you lose that game, you go home, you tell all your friends about it.
Yeah. This is just like a card where like if I see it in my opponent's deck, it's not going to surprise me. If I don't see it in my opponent's deck, that's not going to surprise me either. It just It's good enough that no questions asked.
Yeah, and sorry, I should say like you're never gonna surprise lethal someone with this because by the time that you're gonna be able to lethal somebody with this, they're already playing around and thinking around King Elephant, so you don't really get any equity.
Or even like Sakuna, like it's not even like this is going to be your cheapest storm option. Like you could be doing things with Sakuna as well. Like this is just like it's another thing that you could do.
Yeah. All right. Last card here. Who is it? Shepherd?
Ivy Spellbomb. This is a spell, not quick, very unfortunately. You just choose an enemy follower, deal 5 damage to it, and then combo 3, deal 3 damage to your enemy leader. This card is good. It gets played a lot in Japan, which I was surprised after playing with it a couple of games. It is a little clunky, but it just does feel good to have turns where you might do incidental things like, play a Marvelous Sunday, Bounce a Harvest Festival, like play this, whatever. It's like the worst turn 5 that doesn't lose you the game for doing it.
Yeah, getting the 3 face damage in is actually quite relevant, especially since the decks that Forest is playing right now are going to be relatively aggressive with all these storm pressure threats. So the fact that this is doubling as removal and face damage is pretty good. But again, it does require some setup. And a lot of the things you want to do in Forest with this set do require a lot of setup. So you can't set up for literally everything. You're going to run out of wisps and stuff. So you have to kind of decide where you want to play them. And that may not necessarily be to set this card up. Overall, card seems like playable. I'm not totally thrilled on it, but I'll definitely die to it many times.
Yeah, I should add to that. That's a good point you made about like not having enough resources. I jammed together a test deck where I just put every one of these like combo 3 cards, like Beetle Warrior, Sakuna, and that's when I was like putting in Elvis Princess Mages. Just I was like, all right, let's see what actually feels good when I'm consistently able to combo it. And every game you can't combo everything. I will say Ivy Spellbomb, when you do it, you don't feel like amazing. You don't feel like $1,000,000. You're just like, okay, when you get combo 3, the card's doing what you put it in your deck for. If you ever play it without combo 3, it's like, okay, not the best, you know. It's really missing the important part of Serpent's Wrath, which is quick.
Yeah, well, and draw a card.
And well, that too.
That
It's
part's pretty good
both
too,
the important
actually.
parts. Well,
Yeah.
it does. It draws you a 0 mana deal 3 to the.
It draws you a Demonic Strike. Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
I don't know why Dragon gets all the love when it comes to like these random quick spells that just do so much more than everyone else. I wonder what they were afraid of that they didn't want to give this card quick. But I mean, even with that being said, like I like this card because it helps remove some of like the harder things that you want removed from the game and you don't want to put it back into your opponent's hand. I assume that's why this card was played at some counts in JP. Because like there's a lot of times where if I'm playing like in the Uma matchup, I'm like, great, I need to answer this Daiwa, but I also don't want to put it back in their hand. But all I can really do right now is put it back into their hand because I just have no way to deal 5 damage to it or something like that. This kind of gets you there, right? And I assume there are other targets around the 4 to 5 range where like you early turns, like turns 3 and turns 4, you want to answer it, and the only real way you can answer it is by either putting it back into your opponent's hand or hopefully being able to bottom tech it or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Obviously, I referenced the Japanese meta a few times because I went through and I did like a deep dive into pretty much every Forest deck that had a public top 8 during this time. That meta is different than ours. You know, there's a lot more Uma. And so I think cards like this, you know, if I knew I was going to play half Uma going into an event, I would definitely want to jam Ivy Spellbomb because Uma has so many standing threats that are just like answer this or lose, answer this or lose.
Yeah. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up the 4 side. Our next video, we'll be moving on to Sword. That'll be a fun discussion because I didn't read enough of the Sword cards prior to this. So, yeah, we'll hope to see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.